Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Israel goes on the offensive in retaliation against the latest string of attacks in the north. ILTV digs deep with a new and exciting monthly segment, and it's time for romance. So dim the lights and put on the Marvin Gaye because Israel's annual holiday of love begins tonight. One attack begetting another. Israeli forces have now responded to the latest attempted terror attacks originating in Syria. A rare admission. Israeli authorities confirming that IAF fighter jets and attack helicopters struck several military targets in southern Syria overnight. The targets including Syrian Air Force observation posts, intelligence collection systems, anti-aircraft batteries, and command and control systems.
עכשיו פגענו גם במשלחים. אנחנו נעשה מה שאנחנו צריכים כדי להגן על עצמנו. אני מציע לכולם, לרבות חיזבאללה, לקחת את זה בחשבון. אלה לא אמירות סרק, אלא אמירות עם משקל כבד של מדינת ישראל וצה"ל. כדאי שיתייחסו לזה ברצינות.
The attack follows an attempted improvised explosive device bombing on Sunday by yet unnamed militants who crossed over from Syria. And though the militants are thought to be Iranian proxy militia, not Hezbollah, Israel holds Syria responsible for the attacks emanating from their territory.
גם לא נחים לרגע בנושא הביטחון. אתם ראיתם שסיכלנו, צה"ל סיכל ניסיון של חבלה בחזית הסורית. פעלנו אתמול מול רצועת עזה, מול ירי סוררים, וכמובן העניין עם לבנון עדיין באוויר. אנחנו נפגע בכל מי שמנסה לפגוע בנו.
Now the militants in question crossed the Alpha line between Israel and Syria, approached the security fence hundreds of meters into Israeli territory, and planted a bomb. Israel, responding to the attempted attack, reportedly killed all 4 militants. Then the next morning, IDF sappers went to disarm the explosive left behind, during which time they discovered more bombs in what looks like a small children's backpack. Despite the Israeli retaliation and successful thwarting of the Syrian attack, though, concerns are rising that more violence is on the horizon, especially between Israel and Iran's terror proxies in Lebanon and Syria, like Hezbollah. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah having vowed revenge for the alleged Israeli killing of a Hezbollah operative in Syria last month when Israel targeted Iranian proxy forces. The Lebanese-based Hezbollah having already launched an attempted infiltration in late July, leading to one of the most intense exchanges of fire between Israel and Hezbollah since 2006. Now, just as the threat of serious violence bubbles just underneath the surface, the state comptroller is releasing its annual preparedness report, and among its conclusions, though, is bad news for just under a third of the population. Nearly 2.6 million Israelis, or around 28%, have effectively zero protection or plan to deal with an imminent missile attack. The report finds that 38% of Israelis have a bomb shelter at home, but 27% rely on public shelters by their apartment blocks, and 6% would have to reach a shelter outside their home completely. To make matters worse, roughly half of Israel's public shelters are found to be in disrepair, and updated evacuation plans are tabled. Worst of all, nearly 50,000 Israelis within a few miles of the Syrian border have essentially no protection at all, along with about 230,000 people in the south near Gaza. The IDF blames budget shortfalls, while also noting that public shelters are the responsibility of local authorities. And now joining us with more on the unfolding security crisis, Senior Research Fellow at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, IDF Major General Gershana Cohen. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, Major General, you've worked both on the Egyptian and Syrian fronts. What can you tell us about the current situation?
Nothing really new. Actually, what we are facing is the strive of all our enemies, including Iran, to keep permanent friction with Israel. In one side, they don't want to come to a complete war. On the other side, they are making all effort, trying to find every opportunity to keep the permanent friction to engage with Israel and to try every day to find a new opportunity, a new border, and a new threat.
Do you suspect that things are going to get worse in the near future, or might things be winding back down to the tense but quiet status quo?
We are quite used to that ongoing engagement, and now it is August. Israeli citizens are going to travel. It is quite okay. IDF forces are always ready for a war, with making all effort not to come to it. And they are really operating under very, very complicated deliberation in order to save Israel, to protect it, and also to emphasize what are the Israeli interests. For example, a main important interest for Israel is to prevent the activities of Iranian militia and Revolutionary Guard activists, Iranian in Syria. And we are acting for that operation more than 2 years, and we are going ahead as was emphasized by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu.
So you kind of started to touch on this a little bit, but what are the biggest challenges for Israel with respect to holding the northern border?
The main challenge is that actually Hezbollah succeeded to create a kind of strategic balance to Israel, not by creating a dramatic threat of offensive to come to take Tel Aviv. That's, thanks God, not at all to begin with. But on the other side, they succeeded to achieve a threat to attack every target in Israel, including Tel Aviv, including all strategic assets. And this is a threat that we must take in consideration in every step we are coming to take.
All right, Major General, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, turning focus back now to COVID-19, the virus's spread continues seemingly unhindered. Israeli leadership again weighing the option of imposing full lockdowns, and Nittany Manson reports.
Speaking at the start of the coronavirus cabinet meeting Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu suggesting a general nationwide lockdown as a means to slow the pandemic's spread. Netanyahu saying we will try to avoid this, but it's an option nonetheless. The closures possibly coming as soon as mid-August. Then addressing the press this morning from the Home Front Command, the Premier again laying out his dire warnings.
אני לא רוצה לגמד אותו, לטשטש אותו, או לצמצם אותו בשום צורה. בלי שיתוף פעולה של הציבור, בלי חבישת המסכות, שמירת מרחק וכללי ההיגיינה, אין לנו שום סיכוי להצליח. עם שמירת הכללים האלה אנחנו נצליח.
Other ministers, on the other hand, again discussing the possibility of localized closures and curfews during nights and weekends. But Health Minister Yuli Edelstein rallied against the idea, saying, quote, "There is no such thing as a half closure, just as there's no such thing as being half pregnant." Newly appointed coronavirus czar Professor Roni Gamzu, for his part, has also condemned limited restrictions as illogical. Instead, he's introducing ideas for how to lift closures to ease the economic crisis. But no definitive decisions were adopted overnight either way. Meanwhile, the latest stimulus payments are dished out to further ease the financial fallout of coronavirus. Netanyahu is reportedly already hard at work on a follow-up program. These next payments set to be delivered by mid-September, just ahead of the high holiday season. First, though, the National Economic Council head, Avi Shimchon, must finish reviewing what happened with the current payments, i.e. whether or not they were spent in the ways the government had hoped, especially since, unlike the current payments, the September stimulus is said to be biased in favor of low-income citizens. In any case, the dangers of the disease are mounting, hospitals starting to buckle under the strain, health officials warning that layoffs are on the horizon under current budgets or lack thereof. This meaning that already strapped healthcare systems may be in even more dire straits if current trends continue. New infections rising overnight by nearly 2,000 to over 75,000 total. Nearly 24,800 actively sick, 349 severely ill, and the death toll rising again to 554.
And now it's time to get super excited because we are about to present the first segment of a brand new monthly series starring my favorite tour guide and yours, Anat. Each month she'll be taking us to a new place and teaching us a ton, I'm sure. So without further ado, I'm proud to introduce Can You Dig It with Anat. Anat, thank you so much for being with us. Where are you joining us from today?
Hi, Aaron. So today you are joining me at the top of the mountain on the windy, sunny mountaintop in the city of Tzfat. Tzfat is famous because it's one of the 4 holy cities in Judaism. And the story of Tzfat begins actually about 2,000, 2,500 years ago. There are people living here, but the claim to fame begins during Crusader times. Crusader times in Tzfat, the Crusaders arrive and they build a huge, big fortress at the top of the hill. It gets destroyed by the Mamluks, and then a few hundred years go by, and the Ottoman Empire takes over. When the Ottoman Empire takes over, what happens is that this is the 16th century, and in the 16th century, after the expulsion of the Jews from Spain, the Ottoman Empire gets very smart, and they say, Jews, all of you expelled from Spain, come to the Ottoman Empire. And many of the Jews come into the Ottoman Empire, and a few thousand of them come into the land of Israel and settle here on the top of this mountain, and they build the city of Tzfat. This becomes the golden age of the city of Tzfat, and this is where the Kabbalah, have you ever heard of the Kabbalah? The Kabbalah gets written right here, and this is where mystical Judaism really comes from. And in the 1920s, what happens is that riots begin. The times are not very settled, and the British decide that they're going to build these stairs from the top. You see those stairs? The stairs come down here. Why? Because they're trying to separate the Jews from the Arabs, because what happens is in 1929, there are big riots. 20 Jews are murdered here. A few other dozens of Jews are murdered in Jerusalem and in Hebron. And what happens is that the British decide that the Jews and the Arabs cannot live side by side, and they separate them, okay? They separate them, and then what happens is that they start building in Tzfat. Now, in 1936, they build those stairs, and recently, because of the corona, the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Housing and the Ministry of Construction and Urban Planning are trying to plan all kinds of wonderful programs for the cities of the north of Israel. They come to Tzfat and they say, okay, let's take advantage of the corona, and we will create a large urban plan for the next 20 years. Well, what happens when you construct an urban plan and you start excavating, start building infrastructure? You have to bring in the Israel Antiquities Authority. So the city of Tzfat decides that it's going to create some kind of a nice roundabout, and they bring in the Antiquities Authority. This is Ilan Mizrahi. Ilan is a conservator with the conservation department at the Israel Antiquities Authority, and the building behind us was built in 1932 to protect the Jewish quarter from any further riots. Not only that, it was built with reinforced concrete and as a big shopping center, and they tried to boost the economy of the Jewish quarter. And Ilan is here because his specialty is conservation. And Ilan is going to be in charge of the conservation and the refurbishing of this beautiful building. Not only that, we have here the excavation. This is an excavation in the roundabout, under the roundabout. And from the building, you can see down here, underneath the roundabout, where the parking lot for the buses used to be, they are excavating. The Israel Antiquities Authority is excavating because of the infrastructure that is going to be placed in. Look at what they found. They've got the British the British floor here, down here, the concrete floor. They have late Ottoman street in front of us. They have early Ottoman from the 16th and 17th century, from the 19th century, from the earliest 20th century. Look at all this stuff that is under the ground in Tzfat, because this is going to be developed by the city of Tzfat and all of the other organizations. We have to have a salvage excavation by the Israel Antiquities Authority. And here is we're planning for the future, and hopefully it'll be a wonderful thing.
Wow. All right. I didn't know even a quarter of that. I've been to Tzfat, and I think it's amazing. This is just even more reason to come and visit. Anat, thank you so much for sharing all that. All right. They contain a high concentration of proteins, amino acids, and vitamins, and they are cheap, found in nature in very large quantities, and they are now also available for eating in protein powders. Say hello to chargolim, or grasshoppers. And jumping into the studio with the details is Dror Tamir, the co-founder and CEO of Gold Foodtech, the Israeli company behind this incredible new food movement. Now, Dror, I know that we've had you here on our program before, but it looks like you've expanded the menu a little bit. You want to tell us what's going on?
Absolutely. Since the last time we met, we launched the products in the US, and the response was just amazing. We started with the energy bars, and we also offered the whole locust.
Right.
But the customers were so excited about them. They got a lot of recipes out of the whole locust, and they shared them on Facebook. But some of them said, we prefer them in a powder form. So in the next month, we will be launching new products. One of them would be the pancake mix, which you can see here.
Yeah.
That's a homemade pancake mix with a boost of protein from locust.
And instructions, which is great.
Absolutely. And since you don't have much time, you can actually try one.
I'm going to.
Yeah, smell them first.
Yeah, please. Wow, actually.
It's good.
Yeah, it does. It smells like maple. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that smells really good. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. So, all right, while we're talking, so we've got all these extra recipes.
Let me show you what you're missing.
Wow.
Isn't it good?
It's sweet. It's a lot sweeter than I thought it would be.
It's amazing. And the thing is, if you want to take them down, you need some kind of beverage. So we have shakes for you. That's actually a powder to make a homemade smoothie. First one, of course, will be milk and honey from the country of milk and honey. Of course, with a boost of locust protein and chocolate and nuts.
Wow.
For you as well.
Is the nutty flavor, does that come from the locusts? That's my guess.
Actually, they do have some kind of a nutty flavor, but no, it's so mild you can't taste it. We have to actually strengthen it, boost it as well.
Oh my gosh. All right, so I understand that you've chosen, flavors here. Do you feel the taste at all of the locusts in this?
You can tell me.
I mean, I don't taste anything in here. I know I've had your bars and your locusts, whole locusts before, and I can taste a little bit in those, but not much.
Okay.
The bars are delicious, I must say. Yeah. Regardless of a little bit of locust, but it's amazing. So how do you do that? Like, how do you?
Well, as we move forward, we continuously improve the way we process the locust. What we are trying to do is actually try to process them in a minimal way to keep all the nutrients, and at the same time receive an almost neutral taste and flavor. So actually, when you try the product, you can tell that there are locusts inside.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, these are amazing. And I'm probably going to keep them when you leave.
Go ahead.
So, all right. Tell me about how this was received in the United States, because you started to talk about some of the response there. What other sorts of feedbacks are you getting?
Well, it was pretty amazing, because we were expecting from consumers mainly to be interested in the energy bars, but they got so excited about the product that they started ordering the whole locust first. Wow. And some of them even shared with us, not only with us, on Facebook, recipes they made at home with the locust. Some added them to salads, others just made all kinds of dips. And they went back to the website and ordered more. And when I'm talking about more, it's not 20 or 30 locusts that you have in a jar. Some of them ordered 5,000 or 6,000 locusts. So it was pretty incredible. Many others came back and said, we want more products. We want a lot of powders-based products. So we're starting to come out to the market with new powder-based products. This is just the first ones. The gummies, which is a nutritional supplement with the locust nutrients, will be ready soon. We also have sausages and falafel coming up, and many more exciting products.
So a lot of amazing products, and you've done an amazing job kind of turning the idea that people have about eating insects or locusts or anything like that. You've done a really incredible job changing the face of eating locusts. For those who are watching at home, if you want to try this amazing product, go to biblicalprotein.com. Thank you so much for coming in. This is amazing.
And in September, they will be able to order the powders as well.
Perfect. All right, Dror Tamir, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now tonight, love is in the air. It's Tu B'Av, aka Israel's Valentine's Day. But unlike Valentine's Day, Tu B'Av actually has biblical roots. Joining me to explain is Rabbi Ariel Constantine, the founding rabbi at the Tel Aviv International Synagogue. Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us. So what exactly is Tu B'Av?
Tu B'Av actually comes from rabbinic tradition dating all the way back to the Bible. It first of all represents God's love for the Jewish people, as God had decreed that the Jewish people needed to be in the desert for 40 years, and each year different people would die to basically bring a new generation into the land of Israel. But in year 40, nobody died, and that usually happened on Tisha B'Av, the day that the sin happened, on the 9th of Av, which happened a few days ago. And then they thought maybe they miscalculated, the 10th day, 11th day, 12th day, and by the full moon, they realized that God's mercy was upon them, and they would be granted to enter the land of Israel. And so, first of all, it celebrates God's love for the Jewish people. But in later tradition, it became known as the Jewish holiday of love for multiple historical incidents that enabled women basically to, number one, choose their husband rather than rely on a shidduch, a match made for them. They would go out into the vineyards. They would wear white dresses. They would actually wear borrowed dresses so that nobody would think, oh, making a fashion statement or someone is more wealthy than the other. So, and they would say, don't look at the beauty, look at the family values, look at the person, and would take charge of their destiny and attract them, the men to say, let's make a match.
All right. So what are the Jews supposed to do today? How do Israelis celebrate?
So it's interesting. It doesn't have any rooted tradition in terms of what we actually do, but it's certainly a nice opportunity to go out and to meet people and to try to encourage matches to be made and be proactive on meeting the one that you'll build your family with. And it's a good opportunity for couples who are together to also to strengthen that relationship, whether it's flowers, chocolates, or just going on a date and strengthening that relationship. An alternative to Valentine's Day, this is the Jewish version.
Wow. All right. Rabbi Constantine, thank you so much for sharing with us about Tu B'Av. Happy Tu B'Av to you, and may love continue in your life, I guess.
Thank you, and for all of the Jewish people.
Thank you so much. All right, now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy and warm with lows averaging 74 degrees Fahrenheit or 23 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow should be clear to partly cloudy again, with highs dropping a little bit to an average of 90 Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius. And now before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. Oh my gosh. Wow, stuff like this makes me wish I had a cat. Well, I wonder if I could teach my dog to be as good a goalie as this cat is. This is amazing. This is the best way to spend your time in isolation. All right, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.41 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.